This presentation is covering the BS6016 IDEA LEA MOE random data validation process as it relates to the eligibility standard. This presentation is coming from the Federal Fiscal Compliance and Reporting Division and has been put together by Laura Salazar and Nellie Nino within the Post-Award Compliance Unit. The legal disclaimer essentially states that we are working on our most current understanding of the content that's being covered in this presentation. It does not constitute legal advice. It is subject to change. And if you require legal advice, then you would want to seek legal counsel. Our agenda for the presentation will be covering what is IDEA LEA MOE. We'll be giving you an overview of the BS6016 random data validation process. We'll be sharing with you examples of the alignment and misalignment within these validations, common issues that require amendments and or resubmissions of financial records, and what you can expect prior to the validations commencing, during the process, and then after the BS6016 random data validations are complete. What is IDEA LEA MOE? Well, IDEA LEA MOE is a standard that requires that all LEAs that are receiving the IDEA funds, they're required to budget at least the same amount of local or state and local total or per capita funds for the education of children with disabilities on a year-to-year basis. And IDEA LEA MOE is a 100% fiscal compliance requirement. The initial steps of the BS6016 IDEA LEA MOE eligibility standard data validation process are the training and the information gathering piece. So step one is where a 10% random sample of LEAs is generated on an annual basis. And then step two is where we'll be reaching out to that 10% sample of LEAs and we'll be inviting them to attend a targeted technical assistance training where we can give them an overview of what's going to be expected as a part of the validation process prior to us even asking them to submit any documentation. We'll be facilitating a training. Step three, after the training is facilitated, LEAs are asked to submit financial records from their official accounting system. That's critical. It can't be something that's manually created. It needs to come from their official accounting system. And this information is to support the reported expenditure amount on line 2 of the Special Education Consolidated Federal Grant Application, the BS6016 schedule, which is the expenditure or budgeted amount for special education services for the current school year, which is the 2024-2025 school year. So on the BS6016, that's line 2, which is for the current school year. So that's where the financial documentation comes into play that's coming from the official accounting system. The next step in the process is looking at the alignment of the information and then the verification based upon those financial records. So once the financial records are received by FFCR staff, the information will be reviewed. The data on line 1, which is the reported amount from the most recent prior year from when the LEA was in MOE compliance, the data on line 1 will be verified against the test method amounts indicated on page 2 of the most recent IDEA LEA Maintenance of Effort Final Compliance Review Report. So you're looking at the second page of that most recent IDB LEA Maintenance of Effort Final Compliance Review Report, and you're utilizing one of those 4 test method amounts, that's what is being reported on line 1 on the BS6016 on the Special Education Consolidated Federal Grant application. So we're looking for that alignment and what's being reported on line 1 and what we're seeing on the second page of that report with the 4 test method amounts represented there. The other piece of the puzzle is looking at the financial records that are reviewed that we receive from the LEAs, and we're looking for alignment between those financial records and the amount that's being reported on line 2 of the Special Education Consolidated Federal Grant application on the BS6016 schedule. Line 2 is where the LEAs are reporting the current year's budget or expenditure amount for special education services for the 2024-2025 school year. The other critical part of the review of the financial records is that it has to indicate the correct fund codes, the correct PIC codes, and it also needs to indicate the correct school year. Further, the total amount indicated on the financial records must match the amount that's reported on line 2 on the Special Education Consolidated Federal Grant application on the BS6016 schedule. Important to note here is that if line 2 turns out to be less than what's been reported on line 1A, line 3 or section 3 is going to be activated on the BS6016 schedule. The LEA will be required to indicate an allowable exception as an explanation as to why the current school year's budgeted amount for special education is less than the most recent prior year in which the LEA was in MOE compliance. The sum of line 2 and line 3 must be equal to or greater than line 1A. This is an overview of some important aspects to keep in mind with the financial record submissions as a part of the validation process. 1, the supporting documentation must come from the LEA's official accounting system. If it does not come from the official accounting system, then we'll be reaching out to you to ask for a resubmission of the financial records and that it comes from the official accounting system. The documentation must indicate fund code, the correct fund code. So that would be 199, 420, or 437. The documentation must indicate PIC codes 23, 33, or 43, or a combination thereof. It also must indicate the current school year, and the name of the LEA must be present on the documentation. The documentation must match what was entered on line 2 of the BS6016. And in some cases, the expenditure amount that's reported upon submission of the original application, it may have been based upon the preliminary budget for 2024-2025, and that's completely understandable. But at this point, there should be a final budget in place. So there may be an amendment that needs to take place for that line 2 because now the line 2 is not matching the budget, and it's simply because when it was initially submitted, it was based upon a preliminary budget, and now you all have your final budget. So it may be that line 2 needs to be amended for that reason, due to at the time of submission, it was not based upon a final budget. This is an example of what we are looking for when we're looking for that alignment between line 1A, and the second page of the IDB LEA MOE Final Compliance Review Report. So you'll see here that the expenditure amount reported on line 1A aligns with the second page of the most recent IDB LEA MOE Final Compliance Review Report. They've utilized Test 2, state and local. And so you can see where there is that alignment between the expenditure amount on line 1A and then the test method amount that's indicated on the second page of the most recent Final Compliance Review Report. So that's one thing that we look for, is that alignment between the BS6016 line 1 and the second page of the most recent IDB LEA MOE Final Compliance Review Report. This example comes from the 2023-2024 school year, where we were in the validation process and we were confirming the financial records that were submitted, making sure that they match up with line 2 for this LEA. So you'll see here that line 2, the expenditure aligns with the total expenditure amount indicated on the official financial record. So you'll see that alignment there. So we're looking for that. And then also we're looking to make sure that, as I mentioned earlier, that the correct funding codes are utilized and the correct PIC codes. So you can see right here that funding code 199 is utilized, and then the correct PIC code 23 is being utilized. There are several reasons why a validation may lead to needing to amend the Special Education Consolidated Federal Grant application in terms of the BS6016 schedule. These examples speak to line 1A and line 2. Our first example here is if the BS6016 line 1A does not match an expenditure amount indicated for one of the test method amounts on the second page of the most current IDB LEA MOE Final Compliance Review Report, the LEA must amend the BS6016 line 1A to match one of the 4 test method amounts, and that is from the second page of the most current IDB LEA MOE Final Compliance Review Report. So that is one of our top reasons for why, as a result of these validations, LEAs are needing to amend the Special Education Consolidated BS6016 schedule, is there's a misalignment between what's being reported on line 1A on that schedule and then what's being reflected on the second page of the most recent IDB LEA MOE Final Compliance Review Report. So that's something to be aware of. The other reason that the validations might lead to needing to amend the Special Education Consolidated BS6016 schedule is line 2, where it does not match the submitted financial record documentation in terms of the total expenditure amount. So the LEA must either you need to adjust that financial record because what was reported on line 2 on the schedule is actually accurate, and maybe there was some sort of inaccuracy in the accounting system. So perhaps it's a matter of resubmitting documentation that's accurate, or perhaps the documentation that was submitted is accurate and what actually needs to be amended is the BS6016 line 2, so that that line 2 amount, budgeted amount, matches the amount that's indicated on the financial record that was submitted. A few additional reasons for why the validations may lead to needing to amend the Special Education Consolidated Federal Grant Application BS6016 schedule. We're going to speak about line 3 and line 4 in these examples. So the BS6016 line 1A and line 2. Okay, so if the LEA's financial records do not equal or exceed the amount expended in the most recent prior year, then the LEA would need to provide specific justification This situation relates to line 3 on the BS6016 schedule that outlines allowable exceptions. So say, for example, the LEA has submitted a financial record and the total amount on that doesn't match up with what's on line 2, and it's also perhaps less than what's being reported for the most recent prior year in line 1A. So if that supporting documentation is accurate and the total amount expended is actually less than the most recent prior year, then line 2 would need to be amended to reflect the current and accurate budgeted amount for the current school year of 2024-2025. And if that amount, as mentioned, is less than the most recent prior year, then that's where line 3 comes into play. That section would be activated, and you would the LEA would need to select an allowable exception as an explanation as to why the budgeted amount for the current school year is less than the budgeted amount for the most recent prior year. So that could be an issue with the application actually needing to be amended, or it could be a situation where a financial record has been submitted and it wasn't actually accurate. So as we begin the validation process, we'll be teasing apart those situations to get down to the root of the issue, and we'll be able to offer guidance as how to move forward. So on the BS6016 line 4, this is the assurance of eligibility section, and this must match the test method amount utilized for line 1A and line 2. So for example, if state and local funds are being utilized, then the LEA would need to select state and local total or per capita radio button in the assurance of eligibility section. If local only funds, total or per capita, are being utilized in line 1A and line 2, then the LEA would need to select the second radio button, which relates to local only funds being utilized. So this is a reason why we see some amendments as well, is because the incorrect radio button has been selected for the assurance of eligibility on the BS6016 schedule. There are also a few reasons why through the validation process, it may be required that there's a resubmission of financial records for supporting documentation. One, if the submitted documentation does not reflect the correct funding code or the correct PIC codes or the correct school year, a revised financial record will be requested. In addition, if the documentation is not from the LEA's official accounting system, we will request a revised financial record that is from the official accounting system. Some of what we see are LEAs that have created a financial record as a Word document or have created an Excel file of the expenditure amounts. Excel files are completely acceptable, but they must be generated from the official accounting system, not just manually created. So if we receive a financial record that is obviously not from an official accounting system, we will request a resubmission of a financial record that is officially from an accounting system for the LEA. The other reasoning, if the BS6016 line 2 does not match the submitted financial record supporting documentation total expenditure amount, the LEA must either adjust the financial record and resubmit it, or it could be the case that the financial record is correct and what actually needs to be revised is the BS6016 line 2. So this is a situation where we'll need to tease apart, okay, is it a matter of this financial record being inaccurate and that needs to be resubmitted, or is it a matter of, yes, this financial record is accurate and it's not matching up with the BS6016 line 2 because the amount that was reported on line 2 of that schedule is incorrect, in which case we would initiate an amendment. This is an example of a validation that needed to be revised due to amounts not matching. So what you see here, this was from the 23-24 validation season. So you'll see here on line 2, the special education budgeted amount does not match the total budgeted amount that was submitted from the official accounting system. Line 2 should match that submitted financial record, the total amount. So that's problematic. So then in this example, the submitted budget does not reflect the amount reported on line 2. So again, this requires an amendment and or resubmission of revised documentation. So again, this could be a situation where the financial record is actually accurate, and what needs to be amended is that line 2 amount, because that line 2 amount might have been based upon a preliminary budget, and now the LEA has their final budget and there's a misalignment there. It may also be a situation where the amount on line 2 is accurate and the financial record is what needs to be revised and resubmitted. This is another example from the past validation season, the 2023-2024. This is an example of an amendment required due to line 1 not aligning with the IDB LEA MOE final compliance review report. So you can see here on line 1 the amount that's indicated there, and then you can see the image of the second page of the most current IDB LEA MOE final compliance review report at the time that this validation took place. And you'll see that there's a misalignment between what was reported on line 1A and then what's indicated within the 4 test method amounts on that second page of the final compliance review report. So this particular one required an amendment because there was a misalignment between what was reported on line 1A and then what is reflected on the second page of that final compliance review report. So one of those 4 test method amounts has to match what has been reported in line 1, which is now line 1A. But in the 23-24 validation season, it was still indicated as line 1. This is an example of unacceptable documentation that was submitted. It is an unofficial financial record issue. So you can see here that this financial information was actually created in a Word document and submitted. We cannot accept a financial information that's created in a Word document. It has to come from an official accounting system. And also what's problematic about this, beyond that it is not from an official accounting system, is that there are no PIC codes or fund codes represented here. So Excel files and Word documents that are not from an official accounting system are not acceptable supporting documentation. And we would be reaching out to you for you to resubmit documentation from an official accounting system. This is another example of unacceptable unofficial financial records. This again was created in a Word document, and there are no PIC codes represented. There are no funding codes represented here. And on top of that, as I already mentioned, it's not from an official accounting system. So Excel files and Word documents that are not from an official accounting system, we can't accept them. We would be reaching out to you for you to resubmit documentation from an official accounting system. This is an example of acceptable financial records. So it is from an official accounting system. It has the correct funding codes. It has 199. It has the correct PIC codes, which is 23. So it has all those elements where we're able to accept this documentation as supporting documentation for what was reported on line 2 of the Special Education Consolidated Federal Grant Application, the BS6016 schedule. And remember that line 2 is the budgeted amount for the current school year for special education services. This is another example of an acceptable financial record. You can see here that it definitely comes from an official accounting system. Fund code 199 is utilized, and then we have PIC code 23 utilized. You can also see on this particular one, the correct fiscal year is represented. And this example again is from the validation sample from the 2023-2024 school year. And so looking ahead for this season's validation, what would we would be looking for is for the current school year, obviously to reflect the 2024-2025, and it would be fiscal year 2025 that would be represented on the financial record. This is yet another example of an acceptable financial record. Again, we have representation of the correct fund code, which is 199 in this case, and then we have the correct PIC code, which is 23 in this case, and it comes from an official accounting system. Hopefully the examples that we just covered will help to assist you if, as you begin the validation process when the documentation is requested. Some other things to highlight with the random data validation process prior to the BS6016 random data validation commencing. As I mentioned earlier, we'll be doing the targeted technical assistance training. That is voluntary, but we highly recommend that LEAs attend that training. Training materials will be shared prior to the live session. So there'll be a PDF version of the presentation. There will be a voiceover of the presentation shared. And then in addition to that, prior to the training, there will be a survey shared to where you can provide feedback to us on the presentation materials that have been sent to you so that we can refine our presentation prior to the live session. So when you receive those training materials and you review the PDF version and or the voiceover version of the presentation, if there's something that is still not clear for you, or if there's something that you would like a bit more detail about, or if there's something that wasn't included that you would like to be included, that's the kind of feedback that we would love to hear from you so that we can refine our approach to supporting you with this BS6016 random data validation process. After the BS6016 random data validations commence, we will be scheduling at least 2 sessions of group level office hours to where as you start the process, if you have questions or you just need a little bit of clarification or support on an aspect of the validation process, you can attend those office hours that will be scheduled. You can also set up a one-on-one session with us if you prefer to just speak to us one-on-one about something that you need clarification on, or just whatever the issue may be, we can walk you through that either one-on-one, or you can attend those group level office hour sessions that will be scheduled. Obviously, the documentation will be requested after we commence with the validations. The post-award compliance unit will review the financial records and the special education consolidated federal grant application. So the process, again, is twofold. We're looking not only at the BS6016 schedule on that special education consolidated federal grant application and looking for alignment there, but we're also delving into that financial record, looking at the funding codes, the PIC codes, making sure it's the right school year, right fiscal year, and that we have alignment between the total budgeted amount in those financial records and then what's being reported on that special education consolidated federal grant application. The post-award compliance unit will reach out to LEAs after we complete our review of everything, meaning the financial records that are submitted as well as the application. We'll issue a preliminary report, and there'll be some other relevant reports which will be covered in the next slide. So let's talk about the different types of reports that you are going to see come through as a part of the random data validation process. So there is the preliminary report that will be issued. The preliminary reports are issued for LEAs that require an amendment and or are required to submit revised financial records. The report will outline the issue that needs to be resolved and will also share resources for resolving the issue in order to support you in that process. So if you receive a preliminary report, it's due to an amendment being required, or there may need to be a resubmission of the financial record that was submitted to us. So once we do our preliminary review, if there are issues that need to be resolved, what you'll see come through to you is a preliminary report that outlines what the issue is and how to move forward. Another report that you may see is the final report, no issues of noncompliance. So once we conduct our review of the application and the financial record that is submitted, if there are no issues, then we will send you the final report that is specific for LEAs where no amendment is required and there's no need for a resubmission of financial record. Everything looks great and you've passed the BS6016 random data validation compliance. So this report will give an overview of everything we looked at so that you're aware of all the details of what we looked at, and we will indicate the compliance determination, which in this case, if there were no issues, it would be that you passed. There's also a final report that will go out. If you receive a preliminary report where there's an issue that needs to be resolved, once that issue is resolved, or if it's not resolved, whatever the case may be, you will receive, or LEAs will receive, a final report where a review is conducted after an amendment took place or resubmission of documentation took place. So this is in the event that an amendment took place or a resubmission was required, or a combination of the two. This report gives an overview of what was reviewed, if it was resolved, if it's still unresolved, and it will indicate the compliance determination and steps forward in the event that if it's still unresolved, what the next steps will be. All reports will be shared via email and will be shared through the Federal Fiscal Compliance and Reporting Division work app. And we're utilizing that work app so that we can as a communication tool, and also to make the whole process a little bit more transparent, not only for LEAs, but for ESCs, because ESCs and LEAs will both have access to that work app and be able to see all the documentation that's been initiated, the status of everything, any issues that were highlighted. Everyone will be visible through the work app. But again, all these reports will also be sent out directly via email so that we're covering both those platforms and bases. So additional support and guidance, as I mentioned earlier, we will have office hour sessions scheduled. We'll schedule at least 2 group level ones where we'll send out notification to the LEA sample pool that we're doing a group level office hour. And then also LEAs are invited to schedule a one-on-one session with us if there's something that they know that they need clarification on, or if there is an issue that needs to be resolved. We can definitely get on a phone call, or we could schedule a Zoom meeting, so that we are extending that hand of support to LEAs, and personalizing that in the way that you need it to be in order to move forward. You will have access to or LEAs will have access to the PDF version of the presentation as well as the voiceover version. So that will be an excellent reference for LEAs as they go through this validation process. In addition, there's that training feedback survey, which is an excellent tool for the Federal Fiscal Compliance and Reporting Division and the Postal Work Compliance Unit, so that we can address any issues where we could refine our resources and our training and make sure that we are meeting the needs of the LEAs moving forward in this process. Also, you'll find active links here to resources. One is a resource that outlines how to access, if you don't already have access to the GFFC, the data collection system within TEAL. That is where the IDAB LEA MOE Final Compliance Review Report is housed. So this resource here will walk you through the process, or walk LEAs through the process of gaining that access to the GFFC data and collection if they don't already have that in place. It walks the LEAs through locating and utilizing the IDAB LEA MOE Final Compliance Review Report. So it shows LEAs how to utilize that report, how to be looking at that second page of the report, and how to create the alignment between that second page of the report and the BS6016 schedule on the Special Education Consolidated Federal Grant application. In addition to that, there's an active link here for the IDAB LEA MOE Guidance Handbook, and there's a lot of excellent, very in-depth information in that guidance handbook. So that is also an excellent resource to utilize as you go through this process. So we highly encourage you to encourage LEAs to reach out if LEAs have questions, concerns, or feedback. Please email us directly at the ffcrvalidations@tea.texas.gov. We will be very responsive to LEA's needs and want to make sure that we are providing the support to assist everyone in this validation process.